The Republican race to take on Congresswoman Annie Kuster in the 2nd Congressional District offers something we haven't seen in some time: clearly defined ideological contrasts between the candidates, viewed by many as the top 3 contenders in this race. Among them, George Hansel is the throwback, the kind of centrist Republican we haven't seen since the days of Charlie Bass. We sat down with the mayor of Keene at his 5th-generation family business to discuss his campaign and some key issues. So you ascribe to a more moderate brand of republicanism at a time when in Congress it's all about sort of the partisan fight, staking out a position for Republicans that would be conservative values and then fighting for it. So what do you say to those primary voters on the GOP side who wonder if you're going to fight the hardest for their conservative values?
I subscribe to George Hansel's brand of politics, which is listening to everybody, standing your ground. Compromise isn't always the answer. That has not been my experience. My experience is you stand your ground, you come up with good, reasonable, sound arguments for your position, you listen to those who disagree with you, and you hash it out. The bottom line is if you respect the rules of the game, which are we allow everybody to have free speech, we allow everybody a seat at the table, I don't box people out. You disagree with me, I like talking to people that disagree with me more than I like talking to people that agree with me.
So where will you be compromising, I guess, if you're in Congress with the Democrats?
I can't really speak to a specific area.
Oh, well, okay,
I'm going to go down there and I'm going to speak for the people of New Hampshire. If their concerns are around heating oil and the rising cost of heating oil in the fall, I'm going to be fighting every single day to make sure that I do whatever it takes to lower the price of heating oil for the constituents here in the district.
An easy one, though, right? I mean, that's people can agree on that. What about something like guns, where there's a lot of conflict? The Congress just passed a bill to, expand background checks on gun purchasers under 21. If you're in Congress in CD2 in 2023, would you vote in favor of expanded background checks beyond age 21?
We need to make sure that we're enforcing the laws that are on the books. The current federal background check law has pretty broad categories where we should be doing a better job. The same thing counts at the border. Why in 2022, when we can put a person on the moon, we can do all these amazing things, but we're only able to stop 1 of 20 trucks that are carrying drugs coming across the border? We're not able to control people moving across a real border of our country? Why is that happening? Is it a resources problem? I mean, take the politics out of it. We've got to figure out how to solve these problems because they're hurting families here in New Hampshire.
How about a federal red flag law on firearms? Would that be a yes vote or a no vote?
I haven't seen any red flag laws that I like. I think when it comes to guns and it comes to school safety, we have to come up with solutions that make sure that every student, when they go to school every day, they're focused on learning. And also make sure that every parent, when they drop their student off for school, is confident and feels that they are going to be safe when they pick them up. That may have to do with school hardening. That's definitely going to have to do with resources for mental health. I wish I could say that we had a broken mental health system and we needed to fix it. We don't have a functioning mental health system in this country. We need to focus on that, and it's going to take a lot of time, effort, and resources to do it, but we have to come together as a country, put the politics aside, put the partisanship aside. There are these issues that we can agree on. Everyone agrees we want a good mental health system. Let's do it. Everybody agrees, for the most part, that we need a secure border in order to have a real country and incentivize legal immigration. Let's finally do it. Everything else is a distraction.
What about a so-called assault weapons ban? Voting yes or no on that?
No. I'm not interested in going down to create new federal laws on firearms. I think that our states do a good job of regulating in most cases. Let's figure out and focus on the problem and come up with a solution. I'm not interested in partisan ideas that are just trying to push an agenda. I'm interested in looking at a problem and problem solving just as I would out on my factory floor. If we have something that's not turning out right, we collect data and we take information, we come up with a solution, and hopefully an efficient one that makes sense for all the parties involved, and we move ahead. I mean, it's a very practical thing. It sounds very simple. Why aren't we doing it? Why isn't Washington doing that?
So it seems like a pretty standard Republican line on guns. You talk about this George Hansel philosophy. So, a lot of voters want to know where you stand on former President Donald Trump. Did you support Donald Trump for president in 2016?
I wasn't very involved in partisan politics at that time. I don't get so wrapped up in personalities. I'm about ideas.
And what about 2020? Did you vote for President Trump in 2020?
I voted for Trump in 2020. What's the alternative? Voting for inflation? Like a lot of people, I saw what was coming. I saw these reckless spending bills that were just piled on top of each other and that we're all paying for now. And the sad part about it is it's people that can least afford it that are getting hit the worst.
Do you believe
in the fall here, you're going to have people who are sitting down at their kitchen tables, opening up their heating bills, looking at multi-$1,000s, thousands of dollars more than they paid last year. They're going to have to make heartbreaking decisions about whether they put some money away for their kids' college or they heat their homes, whether they buy prescriptions or they heat their homes. Every single month, average families are paying $460 more at the grocery store and the gas station than they were last year. That's unacceptable. Why aren't we focusing on that? Because, you know, frankly, the incumbents, they just want, they're looking to get reelected. That's what they care about. They're trying to distract and put false information out there and present things in a way so that they get reelected. Let's focus on the issues. What, Annie Kuster, have you been doing to lower gas prices in New Hampshire? What have you been doing to fend off this coming crisis with heating oil? You serve on the subcommittee for energy. You are in a position to do something, I think. So are you unwilling or are you unable to do anything and deliver for your constituents? Those are questions that need to be asked. And frankly, we need to have representatives that hold town halls on a regular basis. When I first became mayor, I came into the position and I said, how am I going to bring all these folks together? I said, I'm going to be the most accessible politician they've ever seen in their life. I started a radio show, call-in radio show. Anybody could call in. They could call in and tell me that I didn't fix the pothole in front of their house, they think I'm a jerk and they think I should resign. The more we argued, the more people listened. They loved it. That's the political process. That's the New Hampshire way. That's something we need in Washington. That's something we need our representatives to do. Every quarter, I'm going to have a town hall meeting in New Hampshire. Could be at a public library, could be at a pizza shop. And we're going to open it up to questions. You want to come and go after me? Go ahead. That's the political process. That's what I love about public service. That's what I love about being an elected official.
So you say Congresswoman Kuster isn't getting the job done.
No,
in 2019, she came here to your family business, big photo op, renewable energy thing. If she's so bad, why are you standing alongside her, kind of buddy-buddy, just a couple years ago?
In that position, I'm working to promote our business. I'm trying to figure out how to get the word out about all the good things that we do. I'm trying to take care of my employees. I would open my doors to anybody that wanted to come in and take a look around. I think what we do here is amazing. I think we're leading on renewable energy. We're leading with our products. We're solving problems for our customers. Anybody that wants to come and check it out, they're welcome.
Fiscal responsibility and fiscal issues seem to be central to your campaign, but in a recent interview with the Keene Sentinel, you said both that you didn't know how much federal assistance and ARPA funds the city of Keene had received, and you didn't know how many federal funds the business had received here. That doesn't exactly sound like somebody who's got a hawk eye on the bottom line.
At the time I was interviewing with the reporter, I didn't have those numbers right in front of me.
About $1.5 million in PPP funds for the business.
Yep. During the first bit of spending that happened during the height of COVID. That was really important. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Businesses, every business took that. And what they did, though, is they followed those up with a $2 trillion spending bill and tried to follow it up with a $4 trillion spending bill on top of that. At least 2/3 more than they should have spent to deal with the crisis. And I've been dealing with it as a mayor. They were hiring people to figure out how to spend the money across government. I was talking to them. I was trying to problem solve with them how to get the money out faster, how to figure out how to do it. All the while, I'm struggling to hire people to build products to ship them out the door so that we can pay taxes. Something doesn't add up there. That doesn't work. And we need to fix that. We need somebody who, if you're going to spend money, build some accountability into it. Make sure that it's a solutions-based problem that you're trying to solve. You know, you come up with a solution, then you fund it. You don't just write a check, get a photo op and jet.
What about Social Security? If you're in Congress in 2023 or beyond, would you be in favor at some point of privatizing Social Security?
I'm not sure. I mean, we have to look at there are lots of problems going on that need resources to solve them, and we have to look at it as a Congress and figure out where those investments need to be made.
So essentially it would be on the table.
I'm getting a thing from
So would it be cuts? Is that a yes or a no, essentially?
I'd have to look at it. There are lots of issues that we're going to be looking at in Congress. Right now, I'm a candidate. I'm listening to the constituents every single day. I'm hearing about their problems, and frankly, there are a lot of problems. I'm talking to people in the restaurants. They're looking at doubling of their food costs. They're concerned about whether they can pass those along to their customers and not take away their Sunday night out. That's what I'm hearing from people. That's what I'm laser focused on. And when we get down to Congress, there are going to be lots of areas to look at, lots of things to take on. but we're going to change the direction of this country, and we're finally going to bring back some representation of the 2nd District, which we desperately, desperately need.
And on abortion, you identify as pro-choice. If you're in Congress, would you vote in favor of essentially protecting abortion to 24 weeks nationally?
It's a states' rights issue at this point.
Okay, so but
now that Roe's been overturned, it's up to the states.
So you wouldn't vote to either?
I hope every state does as well with the issue that New Hampshire does.
Okay, so but if there is federal legislation, you're a no either way.
And I'm pro-choice.
Right, but so I guess on a state-by-state basis. But so if there is
pro-choice,
right,
pro-choice, I believe New Hampshire does a great job with it. I'm not in favor of passing federal legislation having to do with that issue.
So it's a no on either side. So a no to a ban and a no to a protection.
Absolutely, states' rights. It's a state issue at this point.
Mayor Hansel, thanks for joining us on Close Up.
Thank you, Adam.